months since I reviewed The Ape. And I think I'm ready to start watching movies again. I think I can. Uh-oh, there's a note on this stack of DVDs. That's never a good sign. And no, folks, this is not a page of the script, I swear. It says, Jesse, Matt called while you were doing something. He's busy working on the upcoming Don't Fear the Reaper music video. He said if you don't have a sidekick plan for this episode, well, you're on your own. Well, key wrap. At least he picked out the movies before he bailed on me. Let's see what he chose, shall we? DC Comics' Necessary Evils is a documentary about what makes a good supervillain. And it says it's narrated by Christopher Lee. With that voice, it's got to be worth a watch, right? Right? For the first 2/3 of this movie, you get exactly what it says in the box. An examination of some of DC's best supervillains from some of their top writers. Jeff Johns, Marv Wolfman, Neil Adams. And you get some of the writers and directors of some of their most iconic screen projects. Richard Donner, Scott Snyder, and even Academy Award winner Guillermo del Toro. And here's where the movie earned its first strike. It reminded me that del Toro has not one, not two, but 3 DC-related projects stuck in development hell. Swamp Thing, The Sandman, and Justice League Dark. And Swamp Thing just had a TV series on their streaming service. HBO may or may not have Sandman back in development. But a Justice League Dark movie directed by Guillermo del Toro, especially if it took its cues from the J.M. DeMatteis run, I would be all over that though. Some actors who have played the characters put their 2 cents in too. Clancy Brown, Claudia Black, and even big-name actors like Michael Shannon. I guess Mark Hamill was busy because when it came time to talk about the Joker, they got the next best thing. No, not Jack Nicholson. No, not stock interviews of Cesar Romero. They called Kevin Conroy. Everything about this movie was going fine. Not great, but a passable excuse for 100 minutes. And then you get to that final third, where it goes from being a well thought out, but somewhat sloppy examination of why every superhero needs a supervillain to being something else. It becomes an infomercial. It starts plugging the Arrowverse shows left and right. Many DC writers say these TV series get the villains right for the first time, and I get it. A lot of the Arrowverse takes on the villains are actually quite good. Many of the changes were actually brought into the comics. But then they started talking about the New 52, which granted was still going strong at this point. Hell, there was even a book tie-in to this movie. They took the first appearances of many of these villains and reprinted them along with their New 52 reboot. The New 52 started in September 2011, and this movie came out in October of 2013, which created 2 problems. The first being that by this point, most of the really cool books to come out of the New 52, Legion of Superheroes, OMAC, Frankenstein, and Animal Man were all cancelled. Now, some individual titles like Swamp Thing and World's Finest were really good. But for the most part, fans hated it. So, advertising the New 52 in 2013 would be like if Red Roof Inn decided the fact that any of their hotels was no less than 3 blocks away from a meth dealer and a brothel was a selling point. So now I have to ask myself, did I get what I paid for? And you know, that's a hard question to answer. On the one hand, I got this DVD at Dollar Tree. Even with sales tax, it's only $1.06. On the other hand, if you've watched this show before, you know I rarely spend more than, well, $2 on any movie I've never seen before. But this movie had a really well thought out and interesting premise, which it blew in the 3rd act. On the other hand, It was narrated by the original Hollywood supervillain, Mr. Scary Voice himself, Christopher Lee. But it's a criminal waste of his talent. No, I did not get what I paid for, not at all. I absolutely hated this movie. Now, if you'll excuse me, I feel like I owe an apology to Castle of Fu Manchu. Okay, Jess, okay. Calm down. The next thing you watch can't possibly be as bad as that. You're in the clear. And look, there's another note, this time from Matt. I wonder what he wants me to watch next. According to this, it's Supergirl. Wow, David Harewood, John Cryer, Melissa Benoist. This is going to be great. Oh, he didn't mean the TV series. He meant that 1984 box office bomb starring Popeye's Chicken, Helen Slater, Peter Cook, Peter O'Toole, and Faye Dunaway. And if I'm being honest, I listed them in their importance of the plot, not how they land on the poster. Why does this movie even exist? I don't know. But as a man gets older and starts thinking, things become very clear. And one thing I do know, son, is that this movie is here for a reason. I don't know whose reason, or whatever the reason is. Maybe it's because in 1984, a year after Superman 3, Alexander Salkind realized that Christopher Reeve didn't want to make Superman movies forever, but the franchise was still very popular. He skipped over the idea of doing Superboy, and ignored the possibility of a Crypto the Super Dog movie, and went right to Superman's cousin, Supergirl. Anyway, it's Christmas time on Deep Space Nine. Oh, wait, that's Argo City, a moon or space station of Krypton that somehow survived the explosion. Not that they bother explaining any of that. All you need to know is that it looks like somebody moved the Krypton set from the first Superman movie to the abandoned local Sears. If you look in the background, you can even see some of the extras taking apart Santa's village. Anyway, Kara runs into Zoltar, her high school teacher. Even though the movie's pretty clear that she's a 15-year-old with the Kryptonian version of Asperger's and he's 35, he starts hitting on her. He even brags that he stole the magical D20 that powers the entire city to do some unlicensed contracting work. He mentions how he built the spaceship so that he can eventually go off-planet. Probably to Earth. Kara mentions that's where her cousin is. He says he wants to go because, well, basically there's less to do on Argo City than there is in Branson, Missouri. Kara's parents come by. Zoltar tries to do that whole nothing to see here thing while Kara plays with his magic paintbrush. But she makes a sky dancer which flies out of control and breaks a window, leading to near-explosive decompression. Zoltar manages to use the last bit of energy in his magic paintbrush to seal the hole, but the D20 was blown out into space. This renders a critical hit to Argo City. It will soon run out of power unless it's collected in the next 3 days. Zoltar gets sent to the Phantom Zone. Kara sees his spaceship just sitting there and decides to take it upon herself to go get the dodecahedron back before Argo City is destroyed. Yeah, like that'll work. We cut to a creepier than normal looking Faye Dunaway, and she's talking to her lover, this slimy British guy. And they're saying how if she could turn invisible, they could take over the world. I guess she's not exactly the greatest criminal mind of our time. But what should happen to fall into her tea but the magic dodecahedron? Sensing power in the object, Selena tells Peter Cook that he's no longer required. Selena turns on her car radio and we get a scene that was clearly added in post-production that tells us that Superman was called away to be the impartial observer at an interstellar peace conference on the other side of the galaxy. But why would he go to this? Doesn't he know those worlds will have peace? They will have peace. They will have peace when the people of those planets want it so badly that their leaders will have no choice but to give it to them. And we cut to Supergirl. She gets out of the lake and discovers she has powers just like her cousin. She masters using them in all of 10 minutes. Much like Argo City, this movie doesn't bother explaining how. Of course, the original plan was for Superman to find the pod, train her to use her powers, etc., like in the comics. Christopher Reeve even signed on to be in the movie. But he decided the career suicide that was the Bostonians was a much better use of his time. A lackluster first act wouldn't be a problem if it didn't treat that second act like it happened. It cuts to Kara going to this all-girls school, forging a letter, including Clark Kent's signature, to gain her admittance, without, bothering to explain how she knew that Clark Kent was Superman. Meanwhile, Selina is talking to her sidekick, the ditzy one, and explaining that Nigel won't be around anymore. And not only that, bills aren't going to be an issue. We don't know this sidekick's deal other than that her name is Bianca. And I think that's probably a good thing. After all, if we learned anything, it'd probably be that she was Otis's long-lost second cousin 3 times removed or something. At least the way this movie works. Why do I say that? Well, just wait till you see who Kara's roommate is. Bianca suggests to Selina that the best way to advance their plan is to form a coven. And the best way to do that is to host a drug-fueled orgy? Or at least as close to one as would be allowed in a PG movie. But come on, fancy dress. At an abandoned haunted house ride from the fair? Yeah, it's an orgy. And I guess Nigel wasn't so useless after all, seeing as how Selina invited him. Meanwhile, back at school, Kara is assigned a roommate. And what do you know, it's Lucy Lane. Together, they team up to prevent the invasion of the plot of much better movies. Kara uses her powers to turn their losing field hockey team into a group of superstars. When the rival team pulls a prank on them in the showers, she uses her powers and the PG rating of the film to prevent it from becoming a lesbian version of Porky's. Last but not least, they go to computer science class. And holy deus ex machina, Batman! Their teacher is Nigel? He gives them this MacArthur Genius Grant-style Goodwill Hunting question. And thanks to her knowledge of Kryptonian sixth-dimensional geometry, Kara solves it in about 30 seconds. He accuses her of cheating, but Lucy steps in with some bullshit explanation, and Nigel buys it. Selina decides to make the handsome handyman extra that we see in a lot of the background scenes into her lover by drugging him with a potion. Only Nigel stops by and tells her, "You don't know anything about magic, don't mess with it." During this conversation, the handyman escapes down the tunnel of the haunted house and just starts walking, while in the middle of an after-school special version of an acid trip. And now for what we've all been waiting for, the first of many scenes at Popeye's Chicken. And at this point I would like to say that I feel bad for actor Mark McClure. He's the only one from the Superman franchise willing to come back for this. Gene Hackman said he would rather be in this little-known movie called The Misunderstood. Jackie Cooper took a no-budget TV movie. Ned Beatty told his agent he would rather be in the pilot of a little show called Murder, She Wrote than be in this piece of shit. And you would think, since Lucy Lane was a key part of the plot, that they would, ask Margot Kidder. Allow me to break character for a minute, because what I'm going to say is, well, not funny. Mental illness is not an issue I'm willing to make light of. Not only because it would be disrespectful to the many great roles Margot Kidder plays throughout her career, but to the millions of others suffering from mental illness. So I'm just going to say that Margot Kidder was unavailable, and leave it at that. And now, back to our story. Selina uses her magic to track down Hunky McNobrain. Somehow he's managed to go all the way from the carnival to the center of town, right in front of, you guessed it, Popeye's chicken. Selina wants him back so badly, she uses her powers to bring construction vehicles to life. Kara just sits there doing nothing. So much for truth, justice, and the American way. But look, down on the ground, it's a girl. And she's playing. It's just Lucy Lane trying to corral those out-of-control bulldozers. And during this seemingly 20-minute sequence, she's knocked out. I think that's a good thing. I don't really want to hear Helen Slater say, I hope this doesn't put you off construction work. Statistically speaking, it's still the safest way to travel. Right when Supergirl gets Hot Body McMuffin out of the mouth of the steam shovel, that love potion kicks in. And, after only 2 days on this planet, Supergirl gets Me Too'd for the third time. Selina is pissed off, so she uses her magic to summon a monster. But because this production was so famously troubled, it's invisible. So that doesn't work. The Salkinds had some leftover effects from Superman 3, so her next plan is weird weather. That works as well as it did in Superman 3 anyway. Then she tries just out and out abducting Captain Tightpants, which does in fact lure Supergirl to her hideout. You get a few of those what the fuck is going on, where did that come from sort of plot threads that go nowhere. I guess Selina had seen Superman 2 because she just sends Supergirl into the Phantom Zone. And of course she escapes, but how long this takes depends on which version of the movie you've seen. If you saw it in American theaters, or the VHS release, it takes 5 minutes. If you saw it in some theaters in Europe, or on Laserdisc, or on DVD, it takes the rest of your natural life. You might think I'm reviewing this movie, but I'm not. I'm still watching it. Which in a way is good, because it feels like you're in the Phantom Zone with Kara and Zoltar. Anyway, Kara beats Selina and rescues Manly McMahon-Hunk. You know, the guy who has no choice but to love her and can't really consent to everything. Yeah, I'm sure that's healthy. Kara flies back to Argo City to deliver the Omega Hedron. But it's made clear she plans on coming back. Why? Because just like her cousin, she's got Terran fever. So, did I get what I paid for? I paid $8.99 for this movie on Amazon. And look at me, do I look happy? Do I? Yes, this movie has a certain camp charm, but it lacks a certain degree of coherence to take advantage of it. And there are parts of this action movie that are really, really, really slow moving. But worst of all are all the product placements. I mean, people get mildly irritated by all the Reese's Pieces spots in E.T. They get really annoyed at Mac and Me, which had a 3-minute ad for McDonald's in the middle of it, and even that handled them better than this movie. In fact, I'm glad there was never a Supergirl 2. You want to know why? Because if you look at all the sets, you can tell they would never have her visit the Fortress of Solitude. No. She'd be looking at the hologram of Mia Farrow in the bathroom of a Popeye's chicken. I want to say one nice thing about this DVD, however. It has one of the most fascinating director commentary tracks I have ever heard. I'm not sure if that's a point for or against this movie, because really, if your commentary about the movie is more interesting than your movie, you've done fucked up. I don't know why I had to watch this movie. I mean, Matt, look, I know I've said that the movies where I'm in constant pain are the ones that get more hits, but please, I'm not Brad Jones. I'm not that bald yet. And I still like watching movies. So please, don't make this next one worse than Supergirl. Though, considering I keep my copy of Catwoman in a safe that I threw off the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, I don't really see how that would be possible. And you'll regret making me watch this, Matt. Someday you will bow down before me, Jarrell. No matter that it takes an eternity, you will bow down. You, and then one day, your heirs! Oh wait, he chose that underrated classic from 1996, The Phantom. How do you make a movie like this? Add every serial you've ever seen. Western, pirates, science fiction, fantasy, superhero, and mix it in a blender. Pour into a pot. Add 2 cups of Billy Zane, a dash of Christy Swanson, 2 tablespoons of Treat Williams, a dash of young Catherine Zeta-Jones, 2 teardrops, preferably from the time you got your first bicycle or when you came home to find someone you lived with had just gotten a puppy. And then add 2 metric tons of James fucking Remar. By today's standards, this movie seems primitive. Hell, by the standards of the time, it seems simplistic. This was well after Jurassic Park, but this had maybe an eighth of a Jurassic Park budget. But that hardly matters. You get the feeling the filmmakers would have made the movie this way even if they had a bigger budget. Because the whole point was to make it a lot like those B movies. And that's where the fun and the charm of this movie really come from. The opening act of the movie stick pretty close to the Lee Falk original. 400 years ago, a kid's parents are murdered by pirates. He swears vengeance. Thus, he and his descendants become heir to a long chain of mystic guardians with a white savior complex for generations to come. Only as the generations progress, their enemies go from being pirates to being war profiteers, fascists, and, well, Nazis. I'm sure had the series progressed, we would have gotten communists, terrorists, or whatever else the threat of that era might have been. And I'm sure I'm the only one in the United States, other than Billy Zane himself, who will say that they are absolutely pissed that this did not happen. Because it would have been awesome. Trying to summarize the plot of this movie is a losing hand I have no intention of trying to play. Something about mystical artifacts, an ancient and potentially Nazi-sympathizing Tony Stark wannabe named Xander Drax wanting to get his hands on them. One of his henchmen, Quill, happens to be the guy who killed the current Phantom's father. Wait a minute, Drax and Quill? Maybe we did get that sequel after all. Only James Gunn decided to call it Guardians of the Galaxy. No one realized it until now because they took the grandchildren of the bad guys and gave them their own spin-off. Like supervillain movies are ever a good idea. A lot of comparisons have been made between this movie and the Indiana Jones franchise, and part of that is that they're both pulp heroes that take a tongue-in-cheek approach to the material. While Lee Falk's comic strips play it straight, what works on the comic page won't always look good on film. And in a movie, it would have looked very, very silly. But there is another reason to make that Indiana Jones comparison. The script for The Phantom was written by an underappreciated Hollywood legend named Jeffrey Boam. He's a guy known for Inner Space, Lethal Weapons 2 and 3. He was the co-creator of a really great TV show called The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. And he wrote Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which people will argue was the best movie of the series. Is The Phantom sort of a dumb movie? Absolutely, positively, without question. I cannot and will not deny it. But the thing is, it is done with such charm and with such sheer joy of being what it is, that it's a really dumb movie that does what much better written, better acted movies with higher production values fail to do. It entertains. It is really fun to watch. So if it's a rainy day, no one else is home, I might actually, order a pizza and watch The Phantom. Okay, I've got to wrap this one up. And that means I've got to answer one question. Did I get what I paid for? And this is a really weird case. Why? Because when I say that's a hard question to answer, I'm lying to your face. See, I bought The Phantom, if you want to call it that, for 2 reasons. The first being that I love it. Unreservedly, warts and all. but it's not the same sort of spiritual love I hold for the Muppet movie, or the half-crazed manic love I hold for the Big Lebowski. But I really enjoy this film. The second being is that I don't have Amazon Prime, and my order was coming to $52.94. But I noticed that I was $2 away from that free shipping threshold, and the Phantom was $4.99. So when I added that to my cart, my total came to $50.18. That's actually $2.75 less than it was before. So it cost me negative $2.76, and I got a copy of the Phantom. Oh yeah, it was worth it. Wait, stop the credits! There's one more thing I want to say. Last week, or at least last week as of this recording, Louis Lovecog, aka Linkara, read a letter that I sent him along with some bad comics I wanted him to review on his unboxing show. And that netted me 4 subscribers. That might not seem like much, but when I had 9 to begin with, that's a 50% increase. And yes, that does mean I have to put that all 9 of you running gag behind me. But I've got a new name for you guys. You're the Lucky 13. Yeah, the Lucky 13. And not only are views up, but watch time is up. And even on stuff that's old. And some of it was 18 plus. Meaning that, thanks to Kappa, I can't even link to it on the end tags of some of my videos. So I wanted to leave a quote from one of my favorite underrated movies as a way to say thank you to Louis. You can't change the world, but you can make a dent. And what movie are we going to watch next time? By popular demand, it's going to be The Flintstones and The Flintstones Viva Rock Vegas by the great Kazoo. Why me?